We've only really scratched the surface of what's possible with TensorBoard, but rather than go through everything, I'd rather you explore the other things that you can do with TensorBoard. What we're focused on in this section is tracking our model's experiments programmatically, and we've seen how to do that with one model. Let's now start to write some code to do that for multiple models. So I'm going to create another heading here. It's going to be number 6 is create a function to prepare a SummaryWriter instance. Now, what if there were some other things you'd like to append? Because by default, I just want to write this down. By default, our SummaryWriter class saves to the logdir parameter. Now, ours is right now just runs / current date / hostname or underscore hostname. Hostname being the name of the computer that you're running it on. And I'm running it on Google Colab, so it's given it this name here, this unique identifier. It might be your own personal computer name if you're using it there. Let's write here, how about if we wanted to save different experiments to different folders? So what I mean by that is one way of tracking experiments and keeping them separate is, in essence, one experiment equals one folder. So let's say, for example, we'd like to track, I think the date time is a good thing. So the experiment date / timestamp, so we know when the experiment was run. And the experiment name, so we'd like to call it something specific. And then maybe the model name that we used. So in case we use a different model architecture, right now we're using EfficientNet B0, but what if we change that to EfficientNet B2? And then extra. Extra could be anything else. Is there anything else that should be tracked? Now, I want to emphasize that there really is no limit to how you could name your folders for your experiments. There is really no set way of how you could track them. This is just one way. So as many different experiments as you could run, there's as many different ways as you can track them. So this is just to give you an idea of how you could track your experiments and keep them separate. So let's create a function to create a SummaryWriter instance to take all of these things into account. So ideally, we end up tracking experiments to a directory, and we want to call it, let's say by default it's going into runs, and then we do a reverse year, month, day, timestamp. And then you could put the time in there if you really wanted to. I'm just going to keep the date. Experiment name, model name, and then extra. So, and that way, every experiment is going to have a unique name of this. So let's give it a go. So def create writer, that's what we'll call it. Experiment name, we'll take that in as a string. The model name, that can be a string as well. And then the extra, we'll use that as a string, and by default, we'll set this to none. So we need an experiment name, and we need a model name, and we need a timestamp. They're going to be our 3 defaults. So let's just put in a little doc string here. Creates a torch.utils.tensorboard.writer.SummaryWriter instance tracking to a specific directory. So one experiment, one directory, and then we can view that in TensorBoard later on. That's a little bit of a spoiler. So from datetime, import datetime, we're going to get the timestamp first. Import OS, and we'll get timestamp of current date in reverse order. So we want year, month, day. So the timestamp is going to be timestamp equals, we'll use the datetime module here, datetime.now, which means right now. So let's have a look at what this looks like. You might have already used datetime before. If not, just want to give you a little import datetime, from datetime, import datetime. And if we go datetime.now, I believe this is the number of seconds since, oh no, this is right now. Okay, beautiful. And then if we do that, this is going to update. Then if we do that, it's going to update. It is the 27th of June, 2022, right here in Australia. So let's go string F from time. And we want to get it in the format, I believe, I always get this mixed up, but I think it's just year, month, percentage day, return. So well, let's just see if that works. Timestamp, we'll just make sure. Yeah, beautiful, that's what I want. So reverse date time, and we're going to go if extra, let's go create log directory path. So this is going to be logdir. We will take in the os path.join. This is where os comes from. So we're going to join the timestamp, the experiment name, the model name, and extra if extra exists. So we'll save it in runs. We'll keep that by default. Timestamp, we don't need to stringify that. It's already a string. Experiment name should already be a string as well. Then we'll get model name and then extra. And then else, if extra doesn't exist, well, the logdir will just be everything except extra. There might be a more elegant way of doing that, but that'll do for now. Logdir. So let's test this out, hey? We will go create writer equals, and we might print out a little info here, just so we know. Print info. Let's go creating, or created by now. Created SummaryWriter, saving to logdir. Return logdir, create writer equals create writer. Oh, excuse me. We'll go here, example writer equals create writer, and then we'll pass it in the experiment name. We can call this one, let's go data 10%, because right now recall that the data we are using is 10% of the Food 101 data for the classes pizza, steak, and sushi. The model name that we're using is EfficientNet B0, and the extra, we'll just keep it here that we're training for 5 epochs. And then we'll have a look at the example writer. Example writer. Oh, it didn't print out our info. Beautiful. Created SummaryWriter, saving to runs, date, data 10%, EfficientNet B0, 5 epochs. So then, if we were in TensorBoard, we could filter by, say, everything that's ran for 5 epochs, or everything that's used data 10%, and it will show our runs there. So let's get rid of that. But I've just noticed this is just a string. We actually want to make sure we return a SummaryWriter. So I'm just going to import here from torch.utils.tensorboard, import SummaryWriter, and I'm going to create a SummaryWriter instance. SummaryWriter and the logdir parameter is going to be equal to logdir. And now this should update. Beautiful, there we go. Okay, that's what we're after. So now, do you see the power of where we're heading towards? We've tracked one experiment, but now we've got a programmatic way to track multiple experiments. So we could update these on the fly. We could put this functionality into our train function up here, into this function. So we could put a parameter here called writer, and then every time this train function is called, it creates a new writer and saves to a particular writer folder, which is going to come over under here. And in fact, you might want to give that a go. See, there's the one we just created. 27th of June, 2022, data 10%, FNet B0, 5 epochs. How cool is that? So this is going to be one experiment. And this might even be in TensorBoard already. Let's have a look. If we refresh this, TensorBoard, refresh, do we have our latest run? I don't think it will because it doesn't have any files in there. Oh yeah, there we go. Data 10%, FNet B0, 5 epochs. So see, this is a live TensorBoard viewing session happening. We can update that on the fly. So there's nothing in here yet, so we can't view any experiments, but I'm going to give that to you as a challenge. Update our train function to be able to use our create_writer function. So over here, update train to use create_writer. That's your challenge for the next video. So that way we can programmatically track multiple different experiments. Give that a shot, and I'll see you in the next video.